There we go. Welcome, everyone, to the AIRC webinar entitled The Student Voice, Understanding the Motivations and Perceptions of International Students. This webinar is being recorded and will be added to the AIRC video library for all members to access after we wrap up here today. I want to introduce myself really quickly. My name is Clay Harmon, and I am the new Executive Director of AIRC, the Association of International Enrollment Management. We're thrilled to have you join us today. We have a pretty large group, so it's clear that there's a lot of interest in this topic. I want to extend a thank you to Colorado State University and to IDP for providing the webinar content today. IDP is a first-class annual sponsor of AIRC. Thank you very much to IDP for your support. And if you listening are curious about AIRC membership or AIRC sponsorship, by all means, that's something we can help you with. So please feel free to visit our website to get some initial information and or reach out to Rachel Lamson, who is on this call, for information about membership and sponsorship. AIRC staff will be monitoring the chat. Feel free to use the chat at any point for Q&A. And at this point, I will turn it over to Emma Slutland from IDP.
Great. Thank you so much, Clay. Welcome to everyone joining. We're really happy to be here with you today to share the results of Emerging Futures 4, which is the latest large-scale international student survey conducted by IDP, giving us insight into the motivations and perceptions of international students from across the globe. So my name is Emma Slutland. I'm the marketing manager for North America here at IDP, and I have two excellent co-presenters with me today who I will let introduce themselves. Steen?
Everybody, a warm welcome from an increasingly sunny Colorado. I'm Steen Verhulst. I'm the director of the International Enrollment Center at Colorado State University, here to speak to a really robust data set from IDP and their Emerging Futures study, and looking forward to the conversation.
Hi, everybody. I'm Adam Julian. I'm a partnerships director with IDP, and I'm excited to share some of these results with you and looking forward to it. Thanks for having us.
Great. So to start off, I'm going to provide just a very quick overview of IDP, who we are and what we do, just to provide some context for how we're able to conduct this large-scale international student research. So IDP is a world leader in international education. We pride ourselves on being trusted experts for the sector, both for our partner institutions and the students that we serve. So we are an AIRC certified agency, and we operate on a global scale, placing more than 55,000 students annually from 35 different source countries into all of the major English-speaking destinations. And it's through our investments in data and digital technology that we've been able to scale and enhance our operations and conduct projects like the Emerging Futures research. And so as you can see here, we offer strategic solutions to institutions across three main areas: recruitment, which is our physical on-the-ground agent network; marketing, we have a network of student-facing institutional search websites, Hot Courses and IDP. And then from all of this data available to us through these networks, we're able to offer data and intelligence solutions to institutions. And that's going to be the focus of our topic today. So I'll provide a quick background on the evolution of the Emerging Futures research. So over the past 3 years, we've surveyed nearly 100,000 students across 10 different studies. This research series began during the pandemic, when we really just want to understand what students were thinking and feeling. And it's continued to evolve and give us important insights into the perceptions, motivations, and behaviors of international students. And it allows us to compare those findings over time. And so now we're at the fourth iteration of Emerging Futures 4. This data was published last October, so pretty recent. And we're really excited to share these findings with you. So I'll provide a quick overview of the methodology of the survey. So Emerging Futures 4 was a 15-minute online survey. It was administered in English and Chinese, and it was out in the field between July and August of last year. And in terms of the student respondent profile, we had over 10,000 responses from students in 98 different countries, so a really wide reach. And this includes students in various stages of the journey, from searching all the way to complete, as well as students in different study levels. Although, as you can see in the blue chart on the right, the majority were postgraduate students. And in terms of location, most of the respondents are from India and China, reflecting the two largest international student populations overall. But we also had significant populations from the Philippines, Pakistan, Nepal, Nigeria, and some other key countries. We did survey the parents of international students for the first time ever in Emerging Futures 4. We'll dive into those results if we have time. And so here you can see an overview of the parent respondent profile. We got over 800 parent responses. All right, so what were the main headlines, the main takeaways from Emerging Futures 4? These are the main topics we'll be talking about today. There was more than this in the survey, but this is what's the most relevant for the US. So first, we'll take a look at destination perceptions and how the US fits in among the other destinations. We'll take a look at some really important themes around cost of living and housing, which is a really big concern right now. We have a very exciting new section on AI, which is of course a hot topic right now. And we'll dive a little bit into post-study work, which continues to be a key driver for international students. And then if we have time, we'll wrap it up with the results of the parent survey. And along the way, Steen will be sharing his institutional perspective, offering some insights and examples from Colorado State. And we will have time at the end for questions, so please do drop those into the Q&A as they come up throughout the presentation. All right, so starting off with student perceptions of the main destination countries and how the US fits in there. So to begin, we asked students why they are choosing their first choice destination country. So if they're choosing the US or Canada, why is that? So as a multiple choice question, students had a long list of choices, and these are what came up as the top 6 most important factors in choosing a destination country. So number 1 is high quality of education, the most important factor, followed by good employment opportunities after graduation, and then if it is a safe country for international students. And then after that, other important factors are if a country is supportive to international students, if it has attractive institutions, and finally, if it is welcoming to people from other countries. Next, we'll look at primary factors in first choice by destination. So this is the same data as the previous slide, but it's filtered by destination country. And so this allows us to see kind of how the US fits in there, highlighted in the middle in the purple box. So what we see here is that the most important reasons why the students are choosing the US mirror the most important factors overall: high quality of education and good job opportunities. And the US performs well in both these categories compared to other destinations. The areas where the US is not as positively perceived compared to the other destinations are in terms of being a safe country for international students. So you can see there that only 17% of students are choosing the US for safety compared to much higher percentages for the other destinations. And the US also does not perform well in terms of being welcoming to people from other countries. So we see some clear strengths and definite room for improvement for perceptions of the US there. Next, we wanted to understand the reasons why students might not be choosing a destination. So we asked them, why was your second choice not your first choice? And these were the top 5 responses. And so right away here, we see a clear theme emerge. 3 of the top 5 reasons are all related to finance. So the cost of living is too expensive, cost of tuition is too high, and accommodation is not affordable. So these themes of cost and affordability, we see that a lot in this survey, and Adam will be diving more into that in a bit. And some other top reasons why students are not choosing a destination are an absence of friends and family and perceived difficulty of obtaining a visa. And so finally, on destination perceptions, we wanted to understand if current students are happy with the choice they make once they arrive in their country of choice. So we asked students to rank their satisfaction on a scale of 1 to 10, and we have some good news here for the US. Out of all the major destination countries, international students studying in the US reported the highest satisfaction, so 7.8 out of the 10-point scale. So some good news for us here in the US, despite perceptions being out there that we are not safe and welcoming. Once students actually arrive here, they are the most satisfied. All right, and I'll wrap up here with some key takeaways and actions from destination perceptions. So we know that quality of employment and opportunities are the primary factors in first choice, and we know the US performs well in both these categories. The US has the highest satisfaction rating among current students, but has room to improve regarding perceptions of safety and being welcoming. So some takeaways for institutions from this are to ensure that your messaging covers a well-rounded experience, including quality of education, employment outcomes, as well as safety. We know these negative perceptions of the US are out there, so we have to be prepared to address them. So those concerns around safety, being welcoming, and also cost that may be holding students back from choosing the US. So I will hand it over to Steen here if you have any comments about destination perceptions.
Yeah, wonderful. As I mentioned in the opening, a really robust data set for us to kind of dive through. And I think certainly one of the things that we're doing at Colorado State University, and I can give a little further context, of course, Colorado State University located in the US, we're a tier 1 research institution. We have about 35,000 students, inclusive of about 20 different accommodations for students to either live in kind of your typical residential halls or university managed apartments, et cetera. And so we try to leverage our rather large kind of offerings with students. And certainly some key takeaways here are we work with specific partners and cohorts to provide specific accommodations. And so being able to bundle that and ensure that if we're working with sponsored students from the Middle East or we're working with a specific exchange partner in Southeast Asia, that not only is it a conversation about quality, but the offer is bundled with an allocation or specific earmarked beds for their students to be able to come here in kind of a cost-controlled environment to the greatest extent, understanding that our cost of living is quite high. We make sure that we set aside some opportunities, even for first-year students coming from the Middle East. We have agreements with our university apartments to allow them to live in a more autonomous setting based on either religious or dietary concerns. So I would urge you to try to make those connections, understanding all of these motivations that a student or sponsor or partner may have. And another piece is we certainly shout from the rooftops opportunities around employment as part of even our inquiry campaign. And so we do some messaging with marketing communications. We call it kind of our core 4 messaging around a drip campaign. As soon as a new student comes involved, the second message they receive is about ties between graduation outcomes and employment opportunities and leveraging OPT here in the United States, certainly STEM OPT, and understanding particular those audience we see China and certainly India, the graduate market, being very forward about that. If you come here and get your MBA, we want to tell you the story of where those placements are going to look like. And we do that, like I said, pre-application. As soon as they're in our funnel, we're beginning to elevate that story. So I think those are 2 big pieces, kind of the cost piece. How do we address that? Understanding many times tuition is what it is, but how can we create accommodations that are kind of centrally bundled, as well as telling that story about return on investment. It's expensive, absolutely, but here's what our placements look like. Here's our average starting salary. We do a report at Colorado State called First Destination, and that's publicly accessible. And students could look that up and say, okay, if I get my major in hospitality management, what's likely my first destination? As an undergraduate student, does that mean grad school? As an undergraduate student, does that mean an opportunity to join the workforce? And what are those starting salaries? And so we definitely refer students to that and keep very close track of where our students are going, both our domestic and international graduates. So I think it's all wonderful. And I think the data set that's provided here really speaks to a lot of the stuff that we try to do proactively to attract students to CSU.
Thanks, Dean. Yeah, I think, just what you said, cost of living is a very important factor, and housing plays a major role in that. So we're going to share some of the results with the cost of living section. And, like I said, we know it's really important, and Dean just sort of validated that with his experience at Colorado State. So one of the things we wanted to understand is how international students are changing their behavior based on these conditions. So the question we asked is, have the recent increases to cost of living made you reassess studying overseas? And so we've broken up these responses by destination country. Globally, the green circle there, you see that over 56% of students say they are rethinking their decision to study overseas due to the increase in cost of living. This, I should note, is an increase from the last time we did the survey from Emerging Futures 3. We had approximately 51% of the respondents said that last time, we're up to 56. So certainly a major concern. And also when you break down by country, you can see that second to only to New Zealand, the cost of living is a major consideration for students with their study destination. You can see that 57% answered that yes, they are reassessing where they wish to study overseas due to cost of living. And some more bad news. Next slide, please. When we get to the U.S. in terms of destination perceptions, we asked respondents to answer this question, based on a 1 through 10 scale, 10 being the highest, 1 being the lowest. Where do you think the highest cost of living is among the destinations? And no surprise to me, at least, and I'm sure not surprising to a lot of you, the U.S. ranks number 7. It ranks 7.9, the top out of all the destination countries. Some other important things that we talked about with cost of living is we really talked about work expectations and how students are going to find support for work. Next slide, please. So one of the questions we asked was, students who are studying in the United States or who are interested in studying abroad, do you expect your institution to, or do you expect to rather work part-time to help fund your studies? And you can see that 68% of students said yes, they do want help finding a part-time job. And then interestingly, among the students who are currently studying in the US, we also asked about why are you not able to find a part-time job? And you can see that 25% say they're still looking, haven't given up hope. 18%, it's hard to find part-time work where I live. US is a huge country with a diverse set of places and economies around the world. So certainly that varies country by country. And then 16% are just more focused on their studies. We wanted to talk about accommodation. Steen mentioned some of the things that they're doing at Colorado State to really address some of this. And so one of the big picture things we wanted to ask of all of the survey respondents is, what are your goals in terms of securing housing? Are you hoping to secure housing before you arrive or after you arrive? And so you can see globally, 56% want to secure before they arrive in their study destination. In the US, it also mirrors that global percentage. That's 56% want to secure before they arrive, and 44% are willing to roll the dice and hope it works out. I personally don't advise that, but I certainly know lots of our international students who come to the US to study do that. The next slide is really, I think, for me, one of the most interesting pieces of information to come out of this survey, and that's really about the differences in expectations and the reality in terms of accommodation. So this data set is for the US only. And what you'll see if you look at the two circles in purple, there is a large disparity between students' expectations and what actually ends up happening. So prior to studying in the US, only 22% think that they will be living in off-campus private accommodation that is shared. Currently in the US, we find that 44% are doing that. Whereas those who want to live on campus, prior to coming to the US, there's a lot more optimism. 31% expect to be living in campus in accommodation provided by the institution, whereas less than 1/5 actually end up living in that question. And so that raises some really important questions, I think. And one of the key points, at least takeaways from me, is you as an institution, Steen provided some great examples for how you're addressing it, but it's certainly something that's critical and essential that you're aware of, and that you have your ducks in a row, so to speak, on how to answer questions, how to help your students provide accommodation as they come to your campus. So just kind of last piece on the cost of living, some quick summary. Four key things. So the majority of students, as we saw in the first slide of this section, are reconsidering studying overseas due to the global economy. Bad news for us in the US and for those who are interested in, and for students studying in the US is perceived to be the most expensive destination among the destinations we surveyed. When it comes to accommodations and housing, one of the most critical pieces of the challenges with cost of living, plays a huge role in driving decisions and decision-making factors. And then that piece about the disparities between the expectations and the realities. So some things that you can do to really kind of make sure you're addressing these points and assuaging concerns. Be prepared to address cost concerns. Know that this is something that's going to be asked and something you need to have a plan for. Help students understand and plan. Do things like provide financial support services, connect students early and often, I would say, with housing support. And more importantly, be realistic with expectations on what housing costs in your local area and what the availability is. Steen, I know you have talked about some things that you're doing, but is there any other information you want to share as it relates particularly to Colorado State and accommodation or cost of living?
Yeah, certainly. I, like you, Adam, I'm blown away by the students' responses that their plan is to secure housing on arrival. I think all of us, this group, I think we're at 60 attendees. We need to do better there. This should not be something that students think is a reality for them. Even if you have, I think, space or capacity to be able to accommodate these students on arrival, I think that's far away from best practice in terms of a student showing up. We have students even this spring, of course, we're not perfect, that are showing up, and we just went through a very recent cold snap in Colorado, and students trying to get in their dorms, in the middle of the night, that are saying, okay, I'm not sure where I need to go, but I need a room now. And we're saying, okay, you've missed several emails. So I appreciate, despite our best efforts, we want to prepare these students to have this all secured prior to arrival. But to have 40+% of students feeling like, I'm going to get that on arrival, that is a huge uphill climb. And we were talking, when we were preparing for this presentation, in Fort Collins, Colorado, that student who showed up this week thinking they were going to live on campus is probably now 3 or 4 miles away from campus, based on our housing demands and the cost of being close to campus on short notice. And so I think we all need to do a better job of telling that story, driving behavior that allows them to secure housing, whether that's on or off campus. Luckily, again, an institution of our size, we have a dedicated office to off-campus housing. And so we can triage certainly a lot of our graduate students to connect with them, and they've kind of got their finger on the pulse with community partners to be able to find apartments or shared housing for these students. But a huge piece of the puzzle, certainly, and the anxiety I think it causes not only the student on arrival, also our staffs, to be able to figure this out in very short notice, as I mentioned, is far from ideal. So that's one thing. I think really build robust messaging around this to try to change that behavior. And then we again have the luxury too. We're really good with undergraduate housing. We have space there at CSU. It's the graduate housing that's a real challenge for us. That's something we cannot guarantee students, and it's really where a lot of our growth is. I'm sure a lot of you are feeling the same way, growth particularly in India or South Asia around graduate. And so we're seeing, that's outpacing our undergraduate international growth, but the housing challenge is also outpacing our ability to handle those students. And so we're not perfect in any way. We're trying to create more public-private partnerships to secure apartments or earmark some of those, as I talked about earlier, to say, hey, these are definitely international student-friendly accommodations that are a little bit more, less costly, because we can, we're working kind of on cultivating those. So those are a couple of my takeaways, certainly some of our experiences here, but I would say anything you can do, especially with cohorts, to try to secure a block of rooms either on or off campus. We really try to work closely with a lot of partners to make that a reality.
Great, thanks, Dean. Yeah, I too, a little anxiety with students who are wanting to show up in the US without housing. And I don't want to speak for everybody, but another thing that gives me a little bit of anxiety is the emergence of AI. And so we're going to shift over here to how we, to what we found with AI. Really excited about this section this year. As Emma mentioned off the jump, this is the first time we've asked students about their perceptions of the use of AI in their international student choice and admissions for decisions and planning. And so we've broken up the responses here kind of in three different sets. The first is just the global total. The second, you see China, and third, you see India. And the reason we did so is because there's a huge discrepancy between level of comfort and, I guess, ease at which students from China feel with regard to AI versus students from India who are below the global average. So you see the three different questions. So the percentage of Chinese students who plan to or have used AI to help submit applications, 73%, so nearly double the global average. I'm not the greatest math, but that's almost 3 times the amount of percentage students from India. What about helping you decide which institutions to study at? Very similar. You see students from China very open to having ChatGPT and other platforms help them decide which institutions to study, and then also which subject. I think one little thing that jumps out to me is the difference between students from India are a little more comfortable with help from AI on which subject to study than they are when it comes to the application process. You can see that there. All right, so here's an interesting one. This one is about the use of AI in part of application and assessment. And Steen, spoiler alert, I'm going to ask you if you're using AI at CSU here in a minute. But right now, the question was, of the students who are coming to study abroad, seeking international educational opportunities, do you expect the institutions where you're applying to use AI to assess all or part of your application? So all or part of your application. Among the global respondents, that 41% said yes, 32% said no. But interestingly, again, and there's a theme here, if you haven't noticed it, 67% of students from China do expect that institutions will use AI to assess all or part of their application. So based on that, one of the things that we asked is, and what we wanted to really understand is, are you more likely or less likely to apply if you know that an institution is using AI as part of the admission or enrollment process? So on the right, the blue chart looking, we see when students know that you are using AI to make an assessment, but the final decision is made by a member of staff, nearly half of students say they are more likely to apply. But on the left, an AI if an institution is using AI application processing, are they more and more less likely to apply? we see that 35% really say it makes no difference. This I should clarify, is as long as it's part of the process. The data on the right is but the final decision is made by an actual human being who provides that information. So mixed attitudes, I think you can see about the use of AI in application processing, but really more openness from students when they understand that final decision on their future is being made by a human being. Another key piece here in AI, and one thing that I know everybody grapples with, and this is the scary future, is the use of AI when it and how that relates to issues of balance and fairness and bias, particularly. So we ask students if they think the application process or AI, the use of AI in the application process could make it fair or less fair, or might be discriminatory against certain students. So we've broken out here the global data set, the students from China, the students from India, and the students from Philippines. So China, again, really stands out here in terms of source countries. Nearly 50% of Chinese students believe that AI could make the process fair, whereas in contrast, students from India and the Philippines are more likely to say that the process could discriminate against all certain types of students. So obviously, it's an interesting issue with opinions all over the board and on both sides. So it'd be really, really interesting to see how that changes and how that plays out. I have heard from some colleagues at U.S. universities who are using AI in some form, and so certainly the future will be told, I think. One of the things that we also wanted to ask when it comes to AI is, at what point is it really critical for you as a student who is interested in studying in the US or any other foreign country, that you have human advice? So top 5 respondents for when must you have, or when is it most important to have human advice: when you submit the application, shortlisting suitable institutions, confirming my final choice institution. But you see students are more comfortable using AI or using tools, AI tools, when it comes to the initial online research, or even submitting the visa application. I'm sure our friends and colleagues at the U.S. Bureau of Consular Affairs are not comfortable with that, but you can see that your students are a little bit more comfortable. And then we ask students, what's more important to you when applying to an institution? Essentially rank the following. We see this should be no surprise to anyone. What do students want when they apply? They want a decision, and they want it quickly, and they want it based on your grades and or predicted grades, right? So that's overwhelmingly the most important when applying to an institution. Second, that it's okay to receive a slower decision as long as I know that it has been read by a member of staff, right? So no use of AI. There has been thoughtful consideration taken into the decision. And then the third choice was, I'm okay with the slower decision, but I really want a holistic review. I really want to account for my work experience, my extracurricular activities, my goals and aspirations, and all of that. So AI, key takeaways, globally, I think for me, the one thing that stands out is students from China are far more open to the use of AI in the admissions process, by themselves and both by you, the institution. Next slide, please. And then, I think just in general, mixed feelings about the use of AI in the admissions process. So you see that really dependent on country, really dependent on how AI is being used. And so there's always going to be that element of, wanting human support during the application stage, wanting human touch, at least right now, as a part of that. Another key takeaway: fast admissions decision is more important to students than a thorough review by staff. And then obviously the concerns around fairness and AI are critical, and we saw how that plays out. Okay, so Steen, $1 million question: are you using ChatGPT or any other AI products in the admissions process at Colorado State, and what are your feelings about AI in general?
I'm going to bury the lead here well, I'll take a couple low-hanging fruits real quick. And so I think it's interesting, right, as you're looking at the largest survey participants through Emerging Features for India and China. So you've got this perfect confluence, I think, of Chinese students having a favorable view of AI, as well as Indian students who want a decision fast. And so that was the previous slide talking about what's most important. And it's saying, well, the Indian market, I think, is going to say, I want it fast. And the Chinese market is saying, oh, fast, and it seems fair. And so you get a really positive response around the use of AI in those markets. I think it'd be interesting to control for them. And maybe, Emma, that could be a deep dive to look at how those specific respondents are kind of weighing those questions out. But that's my feeling, is that those two driving the lion's share of respondents in the survey are creating kind of this skew towards being fast and seeing it as fair. So I think that's kind of an interesting takeaway. It's something we see certainly from an institutional experience, that certainly a South Asian audience is willing to maybe forfeit some thoroughness in order to get things done quickly. Another thing, in terms of using AI, yes, we're increasingly engaging with AI, but like a lot of the students felt comfortable with, we're leveraging at the front end of the process. And so nothing to do with decisioning or application review. We're using that for dynamic content around kind of those drip campaigns. So we use Slate as our CRM, what we can leverage in terms of text to be more dynamic through AI. And then another one that we haven't started yet, but I'm really excited about is I spent about 2 hours just talking similar to this, so that AI could begin to understand my my hand gestures, my facial gestures as I talk, and they'll be able to use that to make unique responses to each student, such as, hey, Sanjay, congratulations on your recent admission to Colorado State University in computer science. And I don't have to do that every time. And so leveraging AI to understand how to make it look, feel unique. It's coming directly from me. It's personalized. And we partner with a company that's going to allow us to do that. So they just need kind of that initial content, and then AI can take over all of my behaviors. As you can see, I talk with my hands a lot, so I'm probably a tough test case. But so yeah, but really at the front end, nothing regarding any sort of scholarship, financial implications, student placement, admission, etc. It's really using it for storytelling, those inquiries, potentially if, yeah, Clay's got a great question. This may not even be me. And so yeah, so we're excited about some of that, but really keeping that far away from what I would call, I don't know, and people can argue, I'm sure AI is a tough topic, right? But what I would call really consequential. It's not involved with the visa. It's not involved with the admission decision. It's not involved with finances or scholarships. It's really nurturing applicants in ways, I think, that otherwise we wouldn't have the bandwidth to do. I cannot make a unique video for every student about congratulations, you're admitted, but leveraging AI, it's created a new reality for us.
Wow, I'm absolutely equal parts fascinated and terrified. So that's fantastic.
As am I.
Yeah,
as am I.
I had no idea that you were doing that much with AI. And also, Clay, thank you for stealing my joke. I was also going to say that perhaps I'm not even here. But all right, so enough with the scary future, and on to post-work study. Obviously, a critical topic, important topic for student choice. No surprise to anyone here. And so it was a big theme from Emerging Futures 3. We asked students quite simply, will your ability to apply for a post-study work visa impact your choice? You can see 69% of respondents said yes. And then, and another important stat here is that 2/3 say the availability of a visa influenced where they ultimately decided to study. And nearly half of the students said they would consider changing their destination if the duration of the post-study work visa was shortened. So, lots of things happening recently, last couple of weeks, last couple of months, as it relates to, U.S. visa policies, Same with the UK, Canada, and Australia. So I think we'll see how in real time that is playing out. But no surprise to anyone, hugely important when it comes to driving student choice. So then we ask students, what are your plans for after graduation? Nearly a third, 32%, say they intend to work in the study destination once they've completed their program of study. Coincidentally or incidentally rather, this is highest among Indians, Vietnamese, and Malaysian students who at the highest rate said that they intend to study in their destination. 16% say they will seek permanent residency in their study destination. Incidentally, the highest respondents were Filipino respondents with 40%, and then 14% say they will undertake further study in their study destination. And on that one, Chinese respondents were most likely to say that they intend to take further study. So when you add all of these up, you get about 62%. So a significant proportion of students say they intend to stay in their study country, either for work, for other study, or to seek permanent residency. The other 38% were concerned maybe their answers would be shared with U.S. immigration. Post-study work visa. Another really important factor with post-study work is the length of time that students intend to stay in the country. So we asked students, how long you intend to stay in the country? Almost 50% of students say they wanted to stay 2 to 5 years, and over a third wanted to stay more than 5 years. So these are global averages, but it's interesting to put it in context with US OPT when you consider 1 year for OPT, 3 years with STEM extension, and longer H-1B options, kind of where that falls within student perceptions and expectations when it comes to post-study work and length of time. So what kind of institutional support should you, an institution, be providing students, and what are students expecting from you? So the question we asked is, what type of, are you expecting expectations? I'm sorry, are you expecting expectations? Are you expecting that you will be assisted in your career search and your job search by your institution after graduation? 72% said yes, 20% were unsure, and 8% said no. And so among those who are currently in study destinations, currently studying, what are the most valuable services? You see 57% the top choice or internship opportunities, so identifying and selecting those internship opportunities. While career guidance, one-on-one counseling was next, and then access to network opportunities were next. Just kind of a summary of post-study work. No surprise to anyone, I'm sure. It remains a key driver for international student mobility, key factor in decision making. The majority of students who come to a destination to study want to stay and work for at least 2 years after graduation, and they expect job support from you and from institutions. Steen, what are you and all of your wonderful colleagues at Colorado State doing to support students who are looking for jobs in the greater Colorado area?
Yeah, well, I mean, as I mentioned kind of in the opening, I mean, we begin to tell this story about placements or post-study work to our inquiries. And I think that remains consistent through kind of the application enrollment process. And then, of course, when they get here, availing them of, CPT if it's relevant in their program of study, certainly on-campus work opportunities, but a huge positioning towards OPT, understanding that that's a huge attractiveness for students interested in Colorado. And of course, staying in the US generally, we can, as long as they're in the USA, we can take care of their OPT placement. And we have a dedicated person. We have a 50-50 position in our Office of International Programs that is half career advising and half a DSO. And so he wears both hats, sits in both spaces. That's been really useful because there's a face and a name that says, okay, here's your expert on not only how to fill out this application for, HP here in town, but also, if and when you get the job, they're also going to be your go-to for OPT and making sure that your status is reflected accordingly. So again, I'll acknowledge a privilege. We're a large institution with kind of a small army of DSOs, and so we have that luxury. But even if you're small, that's a jointly funded position. And so we were able to split that salary across Career Center and our Office of International Programs to provide some real utility to international students. And so that's been something that's been very useful for us in helping international student-specific advising, because we see that a lot. International students prior to this position walking in and saying, hey, I don't know how to answer this question around what's my status. Do I need a visa or do I not, right? And having somebody trained to really help these students navigate what to us is a pretty simple question on a job application is not so simple for international students. And so leveraging that collaboration for sure. Our Career Center, we also, our Career Center is Career Center for Life. And so talking about that for students, not only with their first placement, but those students that expect to be here beyond 1 to 3 years with OPT, come back to CSU. We're always going to be there to help you. And so trying to create these longitudinal relationships with our alumni to continue to see us, not only as, it's not just one job. We're here to help you with your intention, if and when you're sponsored on another visa, to continue to climb the ladder professionally. And so we're very honest about that, keeping the door open. Once a student gets here, of course, we all wrestle with kind of dual intent and what that looks like on the front end. But once they're here, we're ready to help the students to make sure any of those realities are reflected in this survey about how long they want to stay.
Fantastic. Thanks, Dean. And someone else who's very happy that you're ready to help students when they're here are parents. And that's the last section we're going to cover here today. And I'll just breeze through this really quickly because I want to make sure we have time for some Q&A and some chat. So if you haven't, please submit your questions to the Q&A, put your comments in the chat, and we'll do our best to get to them and give them some airtime here. So parent survey, number one concern for parents, safety. Number two, job prospects after graduation. Not much difference between job prospects, living costs, and tuition fees. And another question we really wanted to ask parents, what's the biggest source of funding for your student? Overwhelmingly, parents are footing the bill. So it's a pretty significant proportion. And then also, I think a key takeaway here is that 42% of parents responded that they are, hoping for scholarships, or that scholarships are playing a major part in student funding for students coming. And then finally some other perceptions of these destinations. So if you think back to earlier how we asked on a 1 to 10 slide, a 1 to 10 scale rather, what are your perceptions as they relate to these different destinations? And here are some kind of takeaways. US, very expensive destination to live in, but I should note that it is perceived to have the highest quality of education and really a good return on the investment. So really seen by parents as despite the high cost, the highest quality education and the best value for the money. And then you see, Canada at this time had the most attractive post-study work visa opportunities, graduate employment opportunities rated highest in Australia, and then the welfare of students considered the highest in Canada and Australia. So just to quickly summarize the parent findings, safety and job prospects, two biggest concerns for parents whose child is going to study overseas. And then parents' perceptions of destination countries are really in alignment with students' perceptions. So they, really thinking the same thing. So things that you can do to kind of, help address these concerns or really leverage this information is create marketing strategies that target parents, and being cognizant and aware of those concerns. I'm sure many of you do this already. The question of safety is one that is always going to be asked, and one that I know everyone in the industry has a question, has an answer for that question, because it's one that you're asked a lot. So be prepared to address that. but also on the flip side, highlight the important opportunities, the value of the education, the quality of the education, and the job opportunities when speaking with parents. Dean, anything you want to add about your kind of general strategy with parents?
Well, I'll kind of, Marilyn sent in a question earlier about kind of US as the most expensive country, but obviously we're a big country and cost very significantly across it. And that's 100% true. I used to work at a rural institution in Kansas. We were extremely affordable. Our dollar went a lot further than it did in Colorado. But I think there's a tie point here between kind of perceptions of safety and low cost of living. I say this at great peril, but what I typically see is where maybe there's a lower cost of living in some rural areas, there maybe politically isn't, the perception of safety maybe isn't as strong in some of those rural areas, typically red states in the United States. And so there's this tension, and we elevate that story in Colorado for sure. We're very active in Mexico. We're hiring a staff member in Mexico because of increasing tensions at the border, and Colorado being a place that, yes, maybe we're more expensive, but the perception of safety is certainly different than that of some other states that maybe are a little bit more conservative or red. So I say that is my opinion only, but I think that's perception of safety, cost of living. There's a real tie there, which I bumped into as a lived experience in Kansas. Will I be welcome? Sure, it's cheap, but will I be welcome there? And Colorado, whoa, it's expensive, but my perception of safety is maybe stronger. And so that requires probably a dissertation. But Marilyn, I think it's absolutely true, kind of that give and take. And all of us, an institutional level, of course, are elevating our story about the safety and accommodations we provide. And so I'm not speaking to our institutions and the resources that exist there, kind of that environment or situation, on a statewide basis. So that's a big leap between, parents wanting their child to be saved. Marilyn's comment about cost of living, I don't necessarily think those things happen in silos. I've certainly been on both ends of that in terms of expensive, non-expensive perceptions of safety, one way or the other. So that would be a whole nother presentation. But yeah, I think really interesting takeaway to be certain.
Great, thanks, Dean. I think Emma, you're gonna provide us with a little summary, and then we'll do some quick questions and answers. So get those in, and looking forward to answering those.
All right, thanks, Adam. So yeah, we just threw a lot of data at you. So this slide is sort of just quickly summarizing it. And I think, a lot of the findings here are not super revolutionary. We know what students are concerned about, cost and quality and many common themes, but it's really about getting the basics right and communicating about these concerns we know students have throughout the whole journey from pre-arrival to after graduation. So pre-arrival, we know speed is crucial. We know AI is out there. Students are open to it with some interesting nuances between countries. And we know students need transparent info on cost and housing. So what you can do about this, you can consider how to use AI in the application process to speed it up. And Steen gave some really interesting examples of that. And just work on connecting students with those housing and cost resources early and often. During their stay, we know cost of living continues to be a concern, and students really want help finding work to help with those financial concerns. So what you can do is offer really robust financial and career support. I know finances is tricky always. But beyond just scholarships, think about holistic financial support like financial literacy workshops, budgeting, just providing really robust support for students around the cost. And then finally, after graduation, we know students want to work, so we need to provide the support to help them do that. And then throughout this, all acknowledging the parents and providing support for parents and guardians through their own journey. So we have a few minutes left. We can probably get to a couple of questions here. I will mention real quickly, if you are interested in getting more of this data, I encourage you to download the Emerging Futures for infographic reports. You can scan that QR code or go to that link. There is much more data than we shared today. So if you're interested in exploring that further, we'd love to talk to you.
Great. So just real quickly, I want to draw everybody's attention to a really interesting comment from Piotr at the University of Rhode Island, who has an experience with some AI-generated application materials. So make sure you read that. Couple of questions that we've had come in. One was around crime statistics and really addressing the issue of safety. I answered that in text, that in previous lives at past institutions have used things like the Clery Act and Title IX reporting to highlight safety. Steen, do you have any other suggestions on sort of stats that you can use to kind of back up that statement?
No, you beat me to it. Yeah, I think Clery Act certainly for institutional statistics, and then will work if you wanted to dig deeper. I think work with your campus PD, and they have a liaison to city county statistics. If you want to really kind of get a grasp of what's happening across the broader community. But Clery Act's a great place to start.
All right, another question from Jonathan Frank. What role do you think micro-credentials have in helping graduates, prepare graduates to be even more employable and job ready?
Love
Anyone?
it. I think it's got a huge role. And so we do a lot of that with just specific short-term programming that leads to a credential or certificate for students that are, non-degree seeking. So we just started a position at CSU dedicated to short-term programming and grants. And then I think for degree seekers as well, it's a huge value add. And so we not only with micro-credentialing, but stackable certificates. And we're increasingly moving towards kind of our 5-year plan would allow for students to MBA has been the most progressive in this space. Our MBA program where a student could get 3 certificates and they would get an MBA. And so I think getting it to this point where there's bite-sized chunks for both in-person, online students, however they want to consume our curriculum, be able to give them something that's contrary to this typical all or nothing thing. You either got the degree or you didn't. And it's like, no, there's a happy medium in there that can continue to be something that gets kind of your foot in the door. So that is definitely something we're very interested in and working towards at CSU.
Like AI, and another thing to keep an eye on for the future. All right, final question in our last minute here. Someone's inquiring about AI companies that you use and mostly for what functions. Maybe I could encourage them to reach out to you directly, Steen, on the companies, but you sort of mentioned the functions, with sort of later in the enrollment funnel. You want to quickly summarize that again? Yeah, and early in the enrollment funnel. So just helping with those inquiries and those apps. Like I said, we do some dynamic kind of video generated AI content. And I was just doing a quick Google search, and it's just AI video generation and kind of parse through those. And I'm happy to have a chat offline about what our experience has been. We went for a big licensing agreement. And so maybe it's not accessible to all of the smaller institutions, but licensing the technology. And then each video then has a marginal cost is how we set it up. But I also appreciate, I'm sure there's a million models out there where maybe you don't have to license it, but that's the path that we've taken. And like I said, it's not live yet. We're just going through my staff, talking to it a bunch to be able to kind of use AI to generate unique content. Excellent. Well, Steen, thank you so much for volunteering your time and sharing your perspective and expertise with us. Emma, thank you for presenting this information and for, just frankly, for asking me to do it. It was a highlight of my day. And so thank you. Thank you to everyone who joined us. Thank you very much to our friends and colleagues and partners at AIRC for allowing us to co-host this webinar today. I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of your day, and stay warm for those of you in cold environments.